prep work when you're cooking a brisket. Although, like I said, there are a lot of different varieties. Sorry, while I'm working here, I'm going to wipe up my table. Don't want to leave a mess in this building that I don't know. There's a lot of different varieties of styles. There's or variables when cooking. Whether it's the seasoning, wet or dry, and once you decide that, what kind of wet or what kind of dry. And then it comes down to your actual wood for smoking. So I guess I probably should have started that. What smoking, I guess by definition is you have your heat source, gas, propane, charcoal, which is what I use. Just outright heat from the outside, like a pressure cooker. And then what smoking does is you get these wood chips. And then when you add them to the heat, whether you put directly to the fire, directly on the charcoal, or you heat them up so much they start to smoke, is the smoke or the flavor of the wood, the chips, chunks, whatever you decide, starts to emit. And within your cooker, which is why you have the dome, you keep it closed, the meat starts to absorb it. And the heat, and the smoke and the heat start to cook your actual meat, brisket, ribs, burgers if you really wanted to do that. Although I've never tried that. Something I should try. And then each type of different kinds of woods, apple, maple, hickory, mesquite, oak, all have different kind of traits, taste characteristics. Me personally, I'm a big fan of the hickory. I think it's mild enough to give a great flavor, but not overpowering. Mesquite can sometimes be that way, and apple and pecan wood are great. I like them, but more often than not, I find myself just defaulting back to hickory. I really enjoy that flavor, but as you begin to cook, or you'll find your own things, what you like, what you hate. And some woods, I mean, this bag particular, this brand, I guess, they have a little cheat sheet on what they recommend for different types of wood. Whether it's, if you have chicken, anything but alder wood. Fish, they say avoid hickory and mesquite. So there's a little cheat sheet on the back of these bags I'll let you guys look at when we're done here. And so let me go ahead and open one of these and kind of show you how I like the kind of wood chips I use, or what they really look like. Okay, so they're just small little chunks of wood here. You'll find some people have big cuts that are 3 inches around and about 4 inches thick, and some people use, like I said, the pellets. I find that these chips work really well because for me it's easy to regulate. When I say that is sometimes some people put too much wood in there and it smokes too much and overpowers the natural flavor of the meat. Some people don't put enough and you don't really get the flavoring. And when you're cooking, you'll really start to see the smoke emit, or you'll see that there's not enough smoke and you'll need to add more chips. And most people say, well, wood and fire, won't it just burn? No. It doesn't just light on fire and smoke like that. They really kind of stay in there for a while. What I like to do to help preserve the chips and have them smoke a little more is I like to soak them in water for about 30 minutes. So what I do is I get a Tupperware container, put how many chips I think I'm going to need throughout my cooking process, and soak them in water. And I drown them in there and I let them sit for about 30 minutes. Excuse me. Okay, so that's wood chips. Let's go on to sauces, barbecue sauces. I know it's a business to be into. You maybe have to walk down the barbecue sauce aisle and you say, well, there's so many, how do I decide? Experiment. Same thing with chips. find one that you like. For me personally, I found, maybe it's because I'm from Texas, born and bred, and I find that the stub's my favorite. It's very good. I've also had the Sweet Baby Ray's, which is a little off-putting when you look at it, but it's got some great flavor. And when you look at it, it's like a cheap bottle, but I enjoy it. And it's pretty expensive. These, typically when I cook brisket, I like to get 2 different kinds of sauces, both stubs, but different flavoring. The original, some people find too spicy. And if I'm posting, I like to have at least something for everybody. So I typically get like a mesquite sweet sauce or a sweet and spicy that adds to the choices for my guests. The charcoal that I use, I just use a standard, the Kingsford Easy Light. I haven't really found that type of charcoal you do use makes a huge difference when cooking. You may have heard while cooking, or while anyone says about barbecue, that barbecue is a work of love, which is I find to be very true, because I find myself having to babysit your meat a lot. Smoking, what's difficult about smoking and can be off-putting to beginners is that you have to maintain temperature, which can be tough. My particular smoker, I love it, but the temperature fluctuates pretty rapidly if you're not careful. If you let too much air into it, the presentation, you really want to maintain about 225 the entire cooking process. So it's hard, you're constantly having to check your smoker, make sure your meat's okay. Temperatures, you'll find yourself always running out there looking at your temperature gauge. I would invest in a really good thermometer that you can place in your grill or in your smoker. I have one that's built in on my smoker, but I don't trust it just on its own, so I went in and bought another one that I leave in there. And it does a pretty good job and hasn't failed me yet, because I don't think it has. So we've prepped and we've kind of gone over the different variables. We've talked about our wood chips, our sauces, our marinades. I have a loaf of bread here. Traditional, just white bread with your brisket when you're done cooking it. So let's pretend that we're the day of, and we're going to put it on our smoker. This is a little over 5 pound, so this will probably take me right about 6.5 hours to cook. I know I said about an hour per pound. But I like to give my meat at least 3 hours on the smoker. And you're just saying, well, when I cook, I like to, sometimes I leave it on the brisket the entire time, but if I have a hard time regulating my temperature, about halfway through the cooking process, or about, for an 8 ounce, we'll say an 8 pound brisket, which is pretty standard brisket size, about halfway through at your 4 hour mark, what some people do is they wrap it in foil and they put it in the oven. They put it in the oven because it's easier to regulate the temperature. And also why they do, and you may be saying, well, why don't they keep it on the smoker and let the smoke flavors really get into it? About halfway through the cooking process, you wrap it in foil anyway. And why you do that is to help preserve the juices in the meat. The first 4 hours, you start building flavor profile. The smoke really starts to heat up, get absorbed by the meat, and really gets into the center of your cut. And at about the 4 hour mark, what you want to do is you go out there and you wrap it in foil, and you can either leave it out on your smoker, or for me, what I do is I bring it into my oven, which is regulated temperature. It's very easy. I just push a couple buttons, hit cook, and it stays at 225 the entire time. I don't have to keep babysitting it. That's when I like to crack open a beer, finish the football game, and hopefully the Cowboys are winning. The reason why you're allowed to, or why some people put it in the oven, because once you wrap it in the foil, it doesn't matter how you're heating it. once you wrap it in foil, you prevent the smoke flavor from getting absorbed by the meat. So it really doesn't make any difference where your heat source is, whether it's grill, smoker, oven. So once it's wrapped in foil, it's standard. It's just going to go. Then you leave it in there for another 4 hours. I would check it about every hour to see if it's cooking. If you're going on any method, you may want to flip the meat inside the foil so the different juices get on both sides. And after that, let's say we're done cooking. The last thing you want to do, and what some people forget to do, is they get eager. They see it, it looks great, it smells great, they want to dig into it, and they cut it right away. You don't want to do that. Once you get it off the smoker, grill, oven, however you're cooking it, you want to let it rest. Traditionally 30 minutes to an hour. And why you do that is you let the juices settle. If you cut it too much, you really start to see it. You'll shred your meat, and you'll get basically shredded beef instead of sliced brisket. And it really just tears it up. It's harder to cut. You don't let the juices settle. And you want it to be even flavor throughout the whole brisket. So that's why you kind of let it sit. So that's kind of the rundown, the basic rundown of smoking a brisket, whether it's on a grill, in a pit, in an oven. You can even smoke in an oven, really. If you, a couple tricks, throw some of the bricks, dip them in water, put them with your brisket and throw them in the oven. That would work. Really get a nice smoky flavor. Wouldn't recommend actually doing it in the oven. You could, I wouldn't. So I guess retract, don't ever do that. I'm not liable if you do. Can't sue me. So with that, get out there, smoke, cook, barbecue, find out what you like, what you don't like, and really experiment. Try different things. Always moving forward, never moving backwards. And that's going to be it for me today. So I'm going to run home, put this in the refrigerator, and tomorrow I'm going to cook and eat a nice brisket. Thank you.